In today's episode of the podcast, we are thinking about the people that you surround yourself with. So it's a Jim Rohn quote who says, "You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." Well, it's been attributed to him. I've never heard him say it. And you know, it's like when you Google these things, and the internet's not completely convinced that other people are. What was really fascinating, though, is when I Googled it, I then found an article that was entitled, "You're not the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with." Now, how is that for a clickbaity headline? Because I did it straight away. I'm like, really? You mean that quote's not true? Turns out that what the article goes on to say, and this guy has done some research into the science of social networks. This guy goes on to say is actually you're the sum of even more than just the 5 people that you surround yourself with. The people that you're friends with, if your friends are fat, then you'll be fat. If your friends' friends are fat, then you'll be fat. And friend extends outwards more than that, apparently. I haven't read this guy's book. I shall say that straight away. But the point that I want to raise with us today, the one thing I want to remind you with today, is how this relates to developing your bounce back. Because if you've been listening along, if you're here every single day, bless you, thank you. But if you listened on Monday, you will have heard me remind you that we all have days where things don't go according to plan. Or we might have weeks in our calendar where, we put all this effort in and then things go a little bit like south. And then, not exactly how we anticipated. That's not a reason, incidentally, that's not a reason to never plan ever again. I tried that a few years ago. I got so sick and tired of writing New Year's resolutions that never seemed to come true. I just thought, forget it, let's not bother. The reality is that, there's that famous quote that my dad likes to say, that no plan survives first contact with the enemy. So these plans that we put in place, real life happens, and they need to be tweaked and adjusted. However, if you don't have a plan at all and you just drift, then there is this danger that we will just sort of sleepwalk through life. So it always helps to have a plan. Personally, I'm an advocate for 90-day planning, and that's probably something we can talk about in future episodes if you've not heard me talk about that before. But for me personally, I can't think about a whole year at once. I have big overarching stuff, but in terms of actually getting stuff done, for me, it's about 90-day goals. But if you don't have that plan in place in the first place, then you really will just drift. However, what we're thinking about today and all this week is what do we do is how do we develop our bounce back muscle? How do we develop our resilience for those times when things don't go according to plan? And the piece of it I want to remind you of today is that you are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. How much you are the sum of the people you surround yourself with is open for debate. However, by surrounding yourself with people who lift you up, who encourage you, who are equally doing really cool things in the world, it will lift you. And this is the reason why I love doing work in community. And if you're not familiar with my little membership community called the League of Brilliance, the ladies in there are amazing. Because if one of them is having, a bit of a wibbly wobbly moment, they share quite candidly and openly. And then they come in and they encourage each other and they lift each other up. And I come alongside and lift them up too. But it's not all that heavy lifting isn't on me. It's a community project. And so we do it together. And I love that. And so every single time that they do this and they come together and they share really vulnerable stuff and then they support each other, it reminds me of this quote, and it reminds me of how important it is to have good people around you, to surround yourself with people who will lift you up. And that's not to say that, we don't feel the feels. I'm not suggesting for 1 minute that you deny, put your fingers in your ear, la, 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 pretend like the tricky stuff isn't happening. It's not about that. You acknowledge those feelings and you deal with those feelings and develop a plan for moving forward from those feelings, which is what episode 1 this week talked about. But having felt the feelings, when we are surrounded by people whose default positivity level is naturally a little bit higher than average, it lifts us. And so I would encourage you, if you're somebody who is maybe struggling to bounce back, if you don't have that support network in place, I would encourage you to start looking at who you are spending time with and what can you do to surround yourself with more positive people. Listening to this podcast is a really great first step, I'm just going to say, because every single day I can be in your ears and encouraging you. But of course, it's not the same as actual interaction. And as as online business owners, we spend a lot of time just us and our computer screens. And it can be lonely. And so that power of community is really important to help combat the loneliness and help you realize that it really isn't just you. And so my big takeaway for you from today's episode is just to encourage you and remind you and ask you, do you have that support network in place? And if you don't, your next step is, okay, what are you going to do to get that support? And that can look like many different things. It can be one-on-one support. I offer that the coaching service. It can be a community. It might be a Facebook group. It might be actually getting outside in your actual real physical location and going to actual physical places and meeting people in person. Can be done. Shock horror. Every time I meet people in person, I love it. It's a really enriching experience. But just today, your next step or your next action is first of all to look at the people you are surrounding yourself with. Do a little audit. And that's not to say you should just dump people out of your lives if they don't quite match up to how you think you need to be supportive. But be honest with yourself. Are you surrounding yourself with people who are encouraging you and lifting you up? And you for them too, of course. You can be that sunshine on the day when other people are having a little bit of a rain cloud moment. So it's a two-way thing. But look at the people you're surrounding yourself with and take stock. And if you need to, start thinking about, right, who are the people I need to be surrounding myself with? Where am I going to find these people? What kind of support do I need? And like I say, if you are someone that would benefit from that support, if you'd like to have a conversation about what that might look like, so how I can support you, I would encourage you to go to faithandbusinessplayground.com/call to book yourself into my calendar after Easter, and we can have a chat about what that might look like. In the meantime, as ever, thank you for being here. Thank you for letting me into your ears, and I shall look forward to catching up with you tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.